have Brad. My name is Marcy Ullum. I am a member of the Rotary Club of Miami Brickell, and I am thrilled to be able to introduce Brad Howard. Now, I have to tell you something. Brad and I went back and forth on what should be part of his presentation, part of his introduction, because what I was getting was the information about how he had been so significant in polio, leading 34 NIDs over a course of 10 years and serving as a Zone 26 in polio now. But I know him from a membership perspective. Brad has been served as a director on the Rotary board of directors from 15 to 17. And before that, he was very involved as a North American membership chair for like 3 years. Currently, he is involved as he's the chair of the communication committee and works as a liaison with the board as well as working with RI. He has extensive leadership training and experience, longtime trainer at PETS and at governor-elect training, and 5 terms, which is pretty unusual for International Assembly. He's the president of Howard Tours. He's in California, and he is sharing his time this weekend between us and District 7020, where he is actually the RI president's rep to their district conference. Without further ado, I think this is going to be a lovely conversation and discussion. I'm going to just turn it over to Brad. By the way, the whole point of an introduction is to point out that the speaker actually knows what they're talking about. There are several on here who can attest the fact that we all know that Brad knows what he's talking about. So thank you for joining us, Brad.
Thank you. Way to set expectations, Marcy. Thank you. I'm hoping that I can do well, and it's good to see many of you here. I recognize some of the names, and I see the one thumbs up. Thank you very much, Cindy Covington. Anyway, it's good to be a part of this virtual district training assembly and to be able to talk to you about our organization, about where we are, and what all of this means to us and to our clubs. And so thank you for taking the time to be here. It's my great joy to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning so I could be right here, ready to go and present to you folks. So I know being in Florida, you probably have had the same experience I have, where you've gone to the beach, or I think maybe you call it the shore back there, but whatever you call it, you go to the water's edge and you know it's the time where the tides are going to change, where you watch the tide change, where you are at low tide and you know it's about to be the lowest point, and you're waiting to see indications of the water to come back up, almost imperceptibly. But you look for that moment of change where you can see the wave hits the rock a little bit higher than the last time. And I know this because I grew up and was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, which is where I should be right now, finishing up the convention, but that will be for another time. But as a kid, I always remember doing this. It was one of my favorite things. The last time I was in Hawaii, actually, in preparation for the convention, it struck me as I watched this that it was fundamentally a metaphor of Rotary's membership slide in some countries of Rotary. In the mature markets, of which the United States is one, we've been experiencing a long-term membership slide. I mean, the tide has been going out for 2 decades. So long that many people have actually been challenged by whether or not Rotary will survive in our area, where they've, in some ways, clubs have literally turned in their charters as this is impossible for us anymore. There was a book written in 2000 by a guy by the name of Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone that foretold of our demise, that said that organizations like ours are losing relevance in the community and probably won't be around much longer. And further, in events just like this and many others, we've tried to train you, we've tried to educate you and help clubs get motivated to grow. In fact, you know, the philosophy was, if you'll just follow what we're telling you, you'll be fine. And what we're finding out is it truly is the definition of insanity, because we keep doing the same training over and over, and the trend keeps going the same way. You know, I think clubs have actually bought into this some. Life is way too busy. There's no time for Rotary. It's an aging demographic. We're losing members and not able to bring in others. Younger people, you know, they're not joiners. First, they're too self-centered. They have a life to build. It's too expensive in Rotary. There's all the reasons that are there. But you know, as I watch the tide, as I'm waiting there for the tide to change, I started to recognize that the landscape of the beach has changed. And so we are changed, our landscape has changed in Rotary. We're challenged at being the best option for people to serve their community. I mean, you no longer need dues to pay dues to help someone, to volunteer. Rotary, in its heyday, in the 40s and 50s and 60s, used to be a corporation's corporate social responsibility arm, where that no longer happens. In fact, corporations, companies are using their social responsibility as a point of differentiation of their product or service to be able to claim we care about our community. We're no longer the only service organization in town. You know, the way that we create community, the way that we get to bring people together to make friendships is very challenged in today's world. And keep in mind the first object of Rotary. It is the essential element. It's the secret sauce of our organization. You make friends and you make a difference. You bring people together to create relationships. You know, for years, well, since our inception, meals used to be an essential element of creating those friendships. That's not so much anymore. There's so many other ways to create relationships, to interact. The internet, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now Zoom, a word we didn't even know 6 months ago. We used to be able to take 2 hours for lunch. Now we take our lunches in front of our computers. Or you go to your Rotary meeting and you carry one of these, a mobile phone, right? In order to be able to stay in touch with the rest of the world. You know, as a speaker in Rotary clubs, it used to be that when I'd see someone looking in their lap, you could be pretty sure that that person was asleep. Now you know that they're tweeting, they're texting, they're emailing, they're staying in touch with their business and everyone else. Further to that, for many clubs, by my observation, have a real hard time creating enough time for fellowship. You come in, if you get there early, it's great, but if you don't, you come in, the bell rings, you stand up, you pledge allegiance, you say a prayer, a thought for the day, whatever's the custom in your club, then you sit down and then there's announcements and all those things have to happen. And then the fine master gets up, the song master gets up, whoever's the master gets up and starts talking. And then you sit down, you introduce the speaker speaks, and you ask questions and the bell rings and you go. And where was that fellowship? Where was the time for that? I mean, quite literally, the social and societal landscape in which Rotary has existed has changed dramatically over the past 20 years, and many clubs have been challenged by it. I mean, the clubs in this district know it. Over the past 9 years, collectively, you've lost about 9% of your membership, and that's equal to losing five Rotary clubs of average size. See, the challenge we have right now today is relevance in today's environment. Not what we thought it used to be, but today's environment. How do you take a traditional organization and evolve it into an organization that is nimble, flexible, and appealing to both the leaders of today and those that led us yesterday, and yet be relevant and attractive to the next generation of leadership? How do we be innovative and honor our traditions? And that's where I think Rotary is challenged right now. Many clubs are struggling to evolve and change. I mean, first, there's the whole category of clubs that don't want to change. I like my club the way it is. Good. Or there's the other category. I like change as long as it's the change that I want to see, right? Some want to change, but they don't know how. And others want to change, but they serve two masters. One are those longtime members who are perfectly comfortable with the way the club is. And yet the leadership of the club knows that in order to be successful, it must be attractive to future leaders and members in the club who want to change. Now, those tend to be clubs that are larger in size, that have this dichotomy that they have to address. So you have this long-term slide where the tide is going out, and all these other dynamics that change the landscape. And then in the midst of all of this, if it wasn't enough, of all the challenges we have, a tidal wave comes on shore, COVID-19. and the beach is unrecognizable. We no longer are playing the same game that we used to. We now have to adapt to a whole new environment. Rahm Emanuel, some of you may recognize that name, the former chief of staff to President Obama and mayor of Chicago, former mayor of Chicago, famously said, "You never want to let a serious crisis go to waste. A crisis provides the opportunity for us to do things that you could not do before." Evidence? This very event that you're attending. I've seen these now done a number of times, and it's incredible the larger number of people who are attending. There was a district in Canada, Washington, that did this, and they have a district of about 4,000. They used to get about 300 people attending these DTAs. When they did it this year, they had 850 people attend. So all of a sudden, this new environment gives us a chance to do things we couldn't do before. For many clubs and district leaders, they have wondered whether this whole episode we're going through right now, COVID-19, the lockdown, the entire environment that challenges not just Rotary, but other organizations, have wondered whether this is, in fact, our pivot point or our end point. Is this the point to which some clubs will not survive because they cannot figure this out? Or will, in fact, this be the opportunity for us to change, to be relevant in tomorrow's world? Well, I can tell you what I can see, but honestly, the answer to that question is in your hands, not mine. I believe only the clubs can answer that question for themselves. And while I would never wish for a pandemic, this crisis may do more to help Rotary than any outside stimulus we have seen. Too many, and myself would be included in that. We believe that this is a pivot point for Rotary. So let me give you some background information. Recently, there was a survey, and many of you may have received this survey if you're a club leadership, that would have asked you if you're meeting, if you're getting better attendance, worse attendance, how are you doing with projects? And while we have yet to digest all the information that came out of that survey, I can give you some top line information. 75% of the clubs are meeting online. 3/4 of our organization, this was a global survey, are meeting online. And 25% are struggling at what to do. Now, in that 25%, there are certain parts of the world that are not as challenged by the COVID-19 crisis. So factor that in. But there are a significant number of clubs that have not figured out what to do. And it could be because their membership or their inability to make the adjustment, or the fact that they may be challenged in an internet environment. But for those who have gone viral, there's been some interesting information. First, many have found it a challenge to figure out how to take that face-to-face experience where we would see each other and spend time and put it into a virtual world. Now, what has become clear, having attended a number of club meetings now, is it's really hard and not terribly effective to take exactly what we used to do and cram it into that camera and have it mean something on the other end. And so many clubs are having to reimagine what a virtual club meeting is and how all these tools work. I mean, the first thing we figured out was how do you get those cool backgrounds? And now you're starting to see that some people can actually have a cool background and speak in front of it as a PowerPoint. And there's many other layers of opportunity through Zoom or other mobile applications. But for those that are making that adjustment, we asked them about attendance. 40% said that they saw a decrease in attendance, but 20% said they see an increase. By my observation, almost every single experience I've had, they have been happy with a higher level of attendance. I've even had some clubs say, we're seeing members that left us a long time ago because now they can. They either moved out of country or out of area. They now can squeeze us in because they don't have to commute. They don't have to spend all the time. So it's a split right now with a heavier load to those that have lost a few members. Interestingly, 2/3 of our clubs have seen an increase in service in this virtual environment. Well, largely, a lot of that service has been directed as a response to the COVID-19 crisis. But for those who have embraced the virtual environment and seen success, there's one common element that I've seen, and that is they've gone back by getting a better understanding of what's essential and what is optional. What is it that we need to do that will make you turn on your computer weekly and will keep you engaged in this process? And a few things became obvious. Notice that that meal all of a sudden evaporated. We no longer need the meal there. And that's kind of important because I think many clubs have been challenged by it, and I'll speak to that in a minute. The further thing that they've found is that this virtual environment has broken down the walls of their club. No longer are there four walls surrounding them and isolating them from their community. Now they can take their experience and put it in their community. They can have others be a part of their organization, of our organization, and enjoy us. But the one thing that is underlying it, this experience, the success of all, is realizing the most important parts of our organization, of their experience. And first, and this is a personal bias in this, first, they've had to reconcile the difference if we're a service organization or a membership organization. What is our essence? What are we trying to do? In this process of being involved with membership with Rotary, that was one of the most essential questions I felt I had to answer for myself before I could be of value to anyone else in this debate. And when I read one quote, it defined it for me fairly quickly. And I'm sure many of you have heard this quote by Richard Branson. Clients do not come first. Employees come first. Because if you take care of your employees, they will take care of our clients. If we take care of our members, they will take care of our community. If we focus on the needs of our members first, if we get them to engage and to believe that Rotary is an essential part of their experience and their life and their family's life and their businesses, they will make a difference in our community because, well, that's what we do. So they've been focusing in this new virtual world on the experiences of their members, first, foremost, and always, knowing that the richer this environment, the stronger the community, the stronger the tie to their club, the better they will be in helping others. The better they will be at making them stronger people with stronger businesses, supported by better families in better communities. And if you think about it, you know, for years, I didn't read the Objects of Rotary because I didn't need any other way to fall asleep at night. But if you read the Objects of Rotary, notice one thing. Every single one of them starts with how Rotary affects the individual who affects the community. It isn't that we talk about service first and bring in members. It's that we talk about members first and how they do service. So it's our core tenet that's been around since our inception, but we fail to recognize that subtle element. So clubs that are in this environment that are getting traction are more focused on figuring out the needs of their members and of the potential members. It used to be when I came into Rotary that they would say, look, just hang out for a while and figure us out. And once you understand Rotary, you'll be just fine. Whereas today's world, we're more interested in what our members want Rotary to look like, or what our potential members want Rotary to look like, so we can adapt the experience to their needs. See, our forced change caused by this pandemic has helped us to focus on understanding each other better, to relate to one another in this very strange environment, to create community. I was telling Marcy just before she let you all in that I'm virtually attending this district conference in 7020. And last night they had a party. It was a cultural party after all of the program and all the awards and everything. And I thought, I'm going to watch this for a while. They had about 400, a bit over 400 people on the event last night. And what they did is they filmed an actual party. They had the whole buffet. They talked about all the food. They had dancing. They had entertainment. There was music. And so I hung out for a while and watched to see the attrition. I left after 30 minutes. And there had only been 40 people who had dropped off the call. My point is they had adapted in this virtual space. Now, is a virtual party as good as a real party? Oh, heck no. The beverages are nowhere near as good. But it held their interest. It kept them together. Further to that, I've seen clubs now really extend their club experience into the community. I had an experience a few years ago where I went down to LA 5 Club, so Los Angeles, the 5th club in Rotary. And they meet in a beautiful place, you know, wood paneled, lovely, right in the very heart for the business district of Los Angeles. And they were lamenting that they could not get people to come into their club, to visit their club. And so my question to them is, why are you forcing them to come inside? Why don't you go outside? Through this experience of this virtual nature, we can do that so much easier. We can bring people into our club that wouldn't otherwise. And I learned this firsthand from my club in trying to adapt to this. About 2 years ago, we started a program called Conversations in Oakland. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Oakland Uptown in the San Francisco Bay Area. And these conversations is we bring in topical speakers in our community that have a strong effect on something going on, whether it be sports, government, politics. We try to bring in speakers that will draw people outside Rotary. And we've done this for a number of years, and it's been very useful. It's been very helpful, and we've gained members as a result of this. When we moved into the virtual space, our attendance by outside people doubled. I mean, all of a sudden now, what we're really trying to figure out is how do we get all these new people to come into our club, to be more of a part of our club and our experience. And not only that, but we've also recognized that we can bring in friends throughout the world. We've had people come and speak to us from Italy, from Australia, from Jamaica, from Canada, and the list goes on. And you can do the exact same thing. The walls of our club are now blurred. Now, we've in fact joined in with another club in Oakland, Oakland 3, which is the third club in Rotary, to do grants and projects together, because if we don't right now, it's much more challenging for all of us. So all of a sudden, the lines are starting to blur. Further to that, it gives us a great opportunity to bring Rotaract right in the middle of our experience. And when you're all looking through a camera lens, you're all the same. There is no difference. So not just the clubs have been forced into change, Rotary has. Perhaps some of you have been watching the weekly John Huco piece called Rotary Responds Live. It's a weekly meeting where he's bringing in people. Our general secretary is now getting out into the community and bringing interest into Rotary, and that benefits us. It benefits clubs. It raises our awareness. And further to that, one of the other things this year is I'm on the Honolulu Convention Committee, which is no longer in Honolulu. In the middle of March, the board of directors appropriately canceled our convention. And within that one moment, 1 week, we pivoted to say we will do a virtual convention. And I hope and trust that next week at about this time, you are on watching our convention. And I can tell you it's spectacular for being able to plan this convention in that short a period of time where we've never done this before. It's extraordinary what you will see. And so we will have an unconventional convention. We just opened signups last week, and everybody needs to sign up so they get the link so we control who gets in. In less than 1 week, over 30,000 people have signed up. And so I need to ask you, are you registered or signed up for the convention? No cost. And if you do, then all of the content will be recorded and kept on the Rotary website so you can look at it later. We'll be able to reach more people. Clubs are inviting people from in the community to attend our convention. And when have we ever had that opportunity? Further, we're going to curate some of the material so that we can give you, clubs, a piece of the convention to share in your clubs, whether it be virtually or when we have the opportunity to do face-to-face. And finally, we've been able to get speakers we couldn't otherwise get. We asked, Mark Maloney had asked the General Secretary of the United Nations to join us. And he said no when it was in Honolulu. He said yes, and he'll be there, part of our convention. Now, this is not to suggest that this is our future. We will return to face-to-face meetings, but now we have a brand new tool to engage our members and our communities. And one of the challenges that every one of you will have when it is possible to start coming back, and right now, maybe in Florida, you do have that ability to start coming back doing face-to-face meetings. What are you doing about the members who are in the high-risk group that don't feel comfortable coming back? We're not going to leave them on the sidelines. How do you do both? How do you incorporate a virtual nature for some and a live nature for others and make it vibrant, not subordinate one to the other? I think that where we have started down this path is asking our clubs to reevaluate what we can do to keep our members interested. So my guess is after the doors are open again, it'll be a blended experience for many. The question of a meal will be asked. I know of a club, big club, that charges $20 for a meal, and it has become so difficult in order to provide a quality meal for $20 that they had to go to paper plates and plastic utensils, almost like a picnic, out of a club that you would expect far more of. And the problem about that is that it's part of the value proposition that members have. I've heard people say, for $20, I could get a great meal going, a great lunch going to Subway or some other place. And yet, that's part of their value proposition when they think of what their membership means. And to be clear, when people complain about the cost of Rotary, the most substantial cost of Rotary is the meal. Less than 10% is Rotary International's cost and district costs. Most of the cost of our experience has been what is borne by the club experience, and that's driven by a meal. But you will find that in the future, as we start down this blended path, that many members will engage more if there's a virtual option. They'll recognize that you don't have to have the speaker come into the club. You could get a speaker from another country to come and present to your club. And now you'll start realizing that the four walls of your meeting are no longer necessary all the time. So what this chapter in Rotary, I believe, will show is that change can make the experience stronger for clubs, its members, and those we hope to attract to the clubs. It will also help us to better define why people want to join your club and what we offer them. Come to recognize that the best experiences that I have seen in Rotary, the elements that drive me to be a Rotarian and that I see many people are driven by, are outside the bells of our club. It's those experiences when they go into the community, work side by side, when they take that trip to put those 2 drops in the mouth of the child, when they realize what they're doing makes a difference. And yes, inside the club is essential to make friends, so you have the strength, the community, and the ability to make a difference. But it's what we do outside the bells that are really different. We offer something that you cannot buy in any store, nor get in any other organization of which I know. We connect the leaders in our communities, those people of action, those people who know how to get things done, that create lasting friendships. And because of this, we empower our members to be better than they could be on their own and to do things that no one else can. There's strength in those relationships. They're important. And while we are isolated in some ways, we're more connected to our members and our communities. We're connected to people of influence who we will need more than ever. We are trying to stay connected to people in their businesses where they need Rotary more now than they have ever needed it in the past. And when our communities are challenged, we've responded. 2/3 of our clubs have responded by saying, we are people of action and we will play a role in our community, even if it means I can't leave my home. Because of who Rotarians are, we achieve what no other group of people can. Now, if ever there was a time that was essential in the lives of our members and our communities, it's right now. The tide has shifted. And those who know this and understand this will ride the wave of success. But those whose feet are firmly stuck in the sand will drown by the changing tide. Those who recognize this opportunity and what it can provide to the club to initiating change will have the ride of their life on a wave of success. So now every club gets to decide. And then you get to answer the question, is this a pivot point or is this an end point? I look forward to watching your district and seeing the example that it will set in the clubs in that district, the examples that you will set at creating a new definition of success. And for people like me, it gives me great optimism of our future and watching the tide roll in. Thank you for letting me share some thoughts. I'd love to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. That was fabulous. And there are some, because it's a fairly intimate group, I'm going to invite people to unmute themselves, ask their question or comment, then mute yourself. Steve, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you for speaking with us, Brad. You mentioned that you've seen several clubs increase their service projects that they're doing. We're trying to figure out what kind of service projects we can do other than just writing checks. So looking for ideas for that.
Great point. Well, first of all, I think that through this process, the essential elements being connected to the people who need assistance. And I would agree with you that they don't need, that clubs that write checks only miss the opportunity to put their members in the middle of that experience. And so I remember in my club, the board decided many years ago, we would no longer write a check to an organization unless our members were active in a project that surrounded it. So the projects that I have seen that work really well in a virtual environment are connecting our talent and abilities and connections with organizations. The one that I saw most recently that was spectacular was a club was connecting to the students of a school. Two ways. This is an inner city in Oakland, so forgive me for using a local example, but it's the one I know immediately. First thing is they worked with the school to realize that a portion of their students did not have internet access. And so the club, my club was a part of this, we got them both hotspots and computers, neither one of which we needed to be physically there for. Picking up the computers, yes, there was a physical element to it. But then we started participating and supplementing the education by giving them, working with the school to be a visitor, if you will, to their lesson process. And so all of a sudden, these people who receive these families that would have otherwise been out of the educational loop, received the computer, were online, and they could see the people that provided it. And so there are ways that you can reach in the community, but you have to think of different ways that we can do this, whether it be delivering food to a place and then leaving it there for others to care, or for going out and connecting resources that you can access to the people who need it. But it starts with, and what I've seen, it starts with having a better and more robust dialogue with the organizations that you need. Everybody needs money, but what they really need are better resources. So if you decouple that element of the only thing you're asking me for is money versus advocacy, connections, other ways to deliver resources than writing a check, I have seen certainly more robust projects, but projects that are better related. So I gave you one good example that I could visualize that I was a part of, but I think that if you go along the path of connecting with those organizations, better defining and pushing them, saying, I can't deliver you my members, and I'm not going to be able to write a check, but how can we help you otherwise? Many times I think you'll find an answer.
Thanks. Katie. Katie, you can unmute yourself and ask your question unless you want me to. So her question was to give examples of folks from afar that you have been able to bring into your club, and also how you've reached out and connected with distant members.
Great point. So first, it's fortunate, I've had a chance to connect with people overseas, so I'm calling on friends. I mean, those four examples I gave you were good friends that I've had a chance to meet in Rotary. But dial for dollars. You've got the opportunity to get online as a Rotarian, look up a club, reach out to a club in another land and say, we would like a virtual experience. We'd like to invite one of your members into our club. Or perhaps the better way, go for some of the senior leadership in your district. I mean, you've got Marcy, I absolutely will know other people. You have other people within your district, your governor, that can say, can you please recommend 3 people that we could ask internationally to join us? You folks on the East Coast have a better shot at Europe. Us on the West Coast, particularly my club is an evening club. We are more challenged. The first person I asked was a guy by the name of Alberto Cecchini from Italy. And I said, would you like to come in? He said, I'd love it. Then I said, oh, wait, that's 2:30 in the morning your time. He said, I know, and I love it. And he came. But you'll have a better shot for Europe. You can start to play into Canada. You can do it, frankly, you can do it with people that are throughout the United States. Barry Rassin, Holger Kanak, Mark Maloney, these are all people that are going into club meetings. Now, you can't do them all, and Holger is fairly well booked. But you could get some of the past presidents to come to your club. You want a great person to bring into your club? Ask Ravi Ravindran from Sri Lanka, past president. Great speaker, great connector. So my point is, if you don't know people, you have resources in your district. The second part is, you know who your past members are. At least I hope you know who. I'm hoping every club that has lost members, at least over the past 5 years, know who they are. Invite them back for an experience and sell the convenience of the experience to reconnect with former friends. I've seen that work every time. Every club that I've asked about this have said that they've had limited challenges of being able to bring people back into their club for at least one visit. Now, the question will be, are you going to deliver an experience that is worth repeating for them? Assuming that they left because of it was inconvenient. Now, if they left because they didn't like the leadership or other elements, you might have a bigger challenge. But those that left because it cost too much or they didn't have enough time, you now have a new way to approach them. And when you get them in the midst, sell them on that. When they come to you, say, isn't this great? Now you can join us without the cost that we don't have to bear, or how quick and convenient this is. You may find a change. I know that the clubs I've seen have absolutely enjoyed that.
Great, thanks. Helene, you have a question.
Yes. Hi, Brad. I had the pleasure of taking a trip to India last year with Brad, and it was awesome. Oh. And I was there when the women's latrines were named for him in India. It was really cool. Okay, so my question is, our club has about 28 members, and half of them are really chomping at the bit to get back, and the rest are more at risk and do not want to, they don't want the in-person meetings with masks and all that stuff. So do you have a way that we can blend, so that we can accommodate both of those, or should we maybe consider having kind of an e-club parallel with the in-person club?
Two thoughts on it. First of all, there's a group of people that are now meeting regularly as part of our organization, chaired by current director Jeffrey Catterett, looking at how do we take this virtual experience and use it to the advantage of our clubs and our organization. Everything from board meetings could be done virtually and save Rotary money, down to how do we help the clubs in this environment, in this hybridized space. As a part of that, there's a gentleman and a group of people that's called the Global Impact Group is the name of the group. And that's basically Rotarians in the San Francisco Bay Area and in Atlanta, Georgia, that are working together to provide a technological solution that can engage Zoom and the virtual nature, and may not be Zoom, maybe something else, to be able to have an experience where clubs can meet and they can bring in people virtually, and it would be a robust environment. So the people who are virtual would have an experience that would be certainly equal to or greater than what they're currently seeing, and club members could get back. That may take a little time. I wanted to at least let you know that basic concept, that question that you asked, is being looked at in all levels of our organization right now. Secondly, the way I would do it is I would be really sensitive to not make the people who are still at home feel subordinated in their experience. So what you may wind up doing is, on those meetings that you decide that you're going to do in person, you do a Facebook Live, at least a Facebook Live. Zoom is a little more challenging, but you should explore a way that allows them to be connected. But what I would do is I wouldn't go all the way back. I would do every other one if I could. In other words, the first week of the month would be in person, the next one would be virtual, and go back and forth. And the club leadership needs to be extraordinarily focused on that group of people that are left behind, and to make sure that they feel that they are in an elevated position, not a subordinated position. So one example, it depends on the size of your club could pull this off. Why don't you do a meeting in the front yard of that member? You've got enough space. I mean, they've been doing graduations and drive-bys and birthday parties and driveways and other environments. Maybe that's the way to do it. And if they're really uncomfortable, let them stay in their house and do it in front. In other words, find a way to stretch your club and that community to keep them engaged. And I hope that answered the question. And I do want to thank you for bringing up the toilets. Yes, for all of you on this call, after they dedicated the toilets, which my name was on, I had one member of that group come up to me and said, excuse me, do you mind if I go to the Brad? It was a charming experience, only in Rotary. Thank you.
Brad, I'm so surprised that wasn't on your CV. Just saying, because who on this call has had a latrine named after them?
Yeah, thank you.
Donald, you had a question.
Yes, Marcy. Thank you. Elaine touched on the question I wanted to ask, but in terms of a balance between the in-person meetings and the virtual meetings, if you're meeting once a week, would a ratio of, let's say, 3 virtual meetings to 1 in-person meeting, would that be in terms of appropriate? But by the way, I love the comment you made, Brad, about meeting in the front yard of that person. That's fantastic. I never even thought of that. I think that's really fascinating. And your whole presentation is just mind-boggling, really tremendous. But yes, just that question.
Well, I don't have that answer. Your club has that answer. I can give you my thoughts,
Yes.
but you don't want to be relevant to me. You want to be relevant to your members. So as you embark on this, as you're going down this path, I would turn first and foremost to your members and say, how can we do this that includes everybody? Everybody's important in our club. So solicit feedback. Now you may find that you have 2 masters in this. One, those people are, damn it, I want to come back and face to face. I want to shake hands. I want to do all that. And then you may have those others saying, I love this club, but I'm not going to put myself at risk, and I am in the at-risk category. So you may wind up having the hybrid. What you have to do is create community to solve the problem. The problem is everyone's important. We're not going to leave anyone behind. How do we solve this that allows you to have the face-to-face and you to stay safe and a part of Rotary? And let that be the answer to your question as to how to do it. There's no reason why you couldn't do both meetings in a week. Do it partly as social. So you have the face-to-face meeting and you bring that in, you give a full report out. I mean, if you can't do a Facebook Live or there was no technology, in other words, I'd really be focused on your members first in this entire experience, to keeping them as a part of the solution and making sure that everyone is involved. Further that, you know, those people that are doing face-to-face, they have another service opportunity. It's called their members. It's those people that can't come out. That's just as important as serving someone in their community that doesn't have the resources they need. They're their friends, they're their family, they're their business partners. And you need to remind them. So as a leader in the club, fight hard for community and not leaving anybody behind, but your answers are with your club members, not with me.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. Perry, I wasn't clear if you had a question.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to ask a question. First of all, that excellent presentation. I took a lot of notes, and I'm going to bring them back to incorporate them into our meetings and hopefully to make them better. Can you possibly give us a couple of examples of international speakers or outside speakers that you brought to your club to make these more interesting under the circumstances that you had suggested?
Sure. So first thing I'd start with is, what are you trying to communicate in your club? I mean, bringing in an overseas speaker or a person from a foreign land is great, but towards what end? I mean, if I wanted to show the possibility of what Rotary could be in the future, I would look therefore to younger people. And if you're going to do that, oh, she's going to hate me for doing that, but you could get a great person from Melbourne, Australia. Her name's Amanda Wendt, W-E-N-D-T. She's talented. She's on the communications committee, and I've worked with her now for 3 years, and she's a bright star. And so she would be great. And once you get into her network, you could ask her. I'll tell you, the other group of people that I found extraordinarily good speakers, Rotary actors. Rotary actors, and because they're looking at Rotary now with a different set of eyes. They're looking at it because they're equal to us, right? And therefore, they're looking at, how do I help the Rotary experience evolve so that when I am interested in being a part of Rotary, it feels natural to join. And so that gives you another opportunity. But the question is, what do you want out of your speakers? What are you looking for to bring into your club? Now, if you wanted to, the way you could do it is to start looking at, so go on, one of the places you could go is look at a website called the Multi-District Pets Alliance. This is where all the multi-district pets groups in the United States are. And in there, you'll see speakers. And there's a ton of them. And the good news is most people are out there willing to spend a little bit of time. And those people that are in that group are people that have been vetted speakers. They're not just a list of names that people got. So that gives you Rotary speakers that you can bring in. We took a flyer in our club to go out and get the #1 person for our community or for our county on health, public health, to tell us what was going on. We never could have gotten that in our before, but he said yes, came in, spent it. The room was packed. Our Zoom room was packed. So my point is, you can start to look well beyond your reach. You have resources. And the thing I would counsel you on, I'm looking at a couple of names here that have been in your pets group. Debbie, Doug, Marcy. These are people that, these are people, Cindy, you were here. These are people that will know who will play well. In the Caribbean, you have great speakers. Haresh Ravchandani from Jamaica is a wonderful speaker. You've got people from all over that can do that. And what you might do, and now I'm talking more to the leadership of your district, is they might help put together who are our Zoom speakers and what categories can they talk into. Where is that expertise that they can lean into? So I hope that gave you a little bit of an insight. Go ahead, Marcy, please.
I'm sorry. I also wanted to suggest that I got an email the other day. I must be on some newsletter list that I got an email where the Peace Scholars had put together a speakers bureau. And if you've never heard a Rotary Peace Scholar speak, they are typically, they are so good and they have accomplished so much at such a young age and they're making such a difference. It's really well worth it. If I can dig that up, or maybe it's just a matter of Googling Rotary Peace Scholars, they may have that on there. Folks, we are closing in on the 50 mark, which is where we kind of need to stop so we can move on to our next session and make sure everything runs as smoothly as possible. So if there's any last minute questions or comments, I invite you to do so now.
Excuse.
Roberto?
Yes, what is the name of the website again? I'm sorry.
That I would suggest you Google Rotary Peace Scholars and see if you can't, if they don't talk about their speakers bureau. I'll also try to find that email that got sent to me, or if anybody else knows
Okay.
that, if anybody else got that email, please share it.
Yes, and Brad, what is the name of the website you mentioned?
It is the Multi-District Pets, P-E-T-S Alliance. If you Google that, you'll see it. When you go to that website, look for speakers. There's a speakers tab at the top, and that'll help.
Thank you.
So on behalf of District 6990, Brad, you have done exactly what I thought you would do, which is to really raise the bar in terms of how we think about our current situation and challenge us to look ahead. And I would like all of us to give Brad a warm Rotary thank you.
Thank you.
Virtually right back at you. Thank you for asking me. It's always a pleasure to be a part of it and to see many friends. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks,
Go
Brad.
on to your next
you.
garden party.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.